Man of Steel 2 is in the works. We've known about this for a fat minute now, ever since Henry Cavill came back for Black Adam and has talked about it, how they're working on things. They're in very early stages, though. They don't have an idea. They don't have a writer. They don't have a director. They have nothing other. The only thing we know is Henry Cavill's back as Superman and that Man of Steel 2 is in the works. We know literally nothing else. So right now, I'm just going to give you guys some of my loose ideas for Man of Steel 2. If I had any creative input, here's what I would do. Also, shout out to Logan in my Discord. He suggested that I make a video on this. So link in the description if you want to join my Discord and also put in video suggestions. So without further ado, let's talk about how I would handle Man of Steel 2. With Man of Steel 2, the rumor is that it's going to be a softcore reboot because Flashpoint, the Flash movie, is supposed to be a sort of reboot of things, and so I believe we're going to be getting some new castings and stuff. It's not going to be everyone back from the previous movies. And I think that's a good thing. For instance, Amy Adams, I think, is a great actress, but a horrible Lois Lane. She is not good as Lois Lane. Her and Henry Cavill don't really have any chemistry at all, other than that one interrogation scene. They don't really have much chemistry at all. I don't think she's a good Lois Lane. I would very much be in favor of her being recast. Also, the age difference between them always just felt a little weird on screen. It was just, you could tell she was noticeably older than Superman. So, yeah. I would be down for someone else to be cast as Lois Lane. Same with Lex Luthor. Jesse Eisenberg's a great actor, but he's literally just playing the same character he plays in every other movie. A fast-talking smart guy that's not really socially aware, and that's not Lex Luthor. But that's exactly how he plays him, and it's horrible, and I hate it. It's not Jesse Eisenberg's fault, same as Amy Adams. It's just not meant to play Lex Luthor. He is not Lex Luthor. So I would like Lex Luthor to be recast. Also, you really need to build up Superman's supporting cast in this movie. I think it's very important to get Jimmy Olsen back. Yes, Jimmy Olsen appeared in 5 seconds of Batman v Superman and got shot.
Miss Lane, Jimmy Olsen, photographer.
He was like a CIA agent or something. It was really stupid. Very dumb. That you don't even need a reboot about. If someone sees Jimmy Olsen in Man of Steel 2, no one's going to be like, oh man, isn't that the guy that died in the beginning of Batman v Superman? No. No one even knew that was Jimmy Olsen until later. It's really, really stupid. So that doesn't matter. But I think, having Superman have that connection to Jimmy would be very important, because in the other movies, it was kind of like, yeah, Superman doesn't really care about humanity, but he thinks Lois is hot. That was kind of Batman v Superman. It was like, you're my world, Lois. Everyone else I don't really care. I just doesn't really matter, but Lois, you're hot, so I'm going to save this world. And it's like, yeah, maybe give him some other friends, because he seems to only care about Lois at all. So I think giving him another connection with Jimmy Olsen would be great. Someone that I hope isn't recast is Martha. I think Diane Lane is perfect as Martha Kent. I hope they keep her. As part of the softcore reboot, though, they could bring Jonathan back. I think that would be great. I would love to see Jonathan back. I think Kevin Costner was great as him. And also you can sort of redeem him, because a lot of people weren't the biggest fans of him, suggesting that you could let a bus full of children die to keep your secret identity. So I think having some redemption for him would be good. And by the way, I don't know if you're new to this channel or anything, I really do like Man of Steel. I think Man of Steel is a really good movie. Some problems, but overall I really, really like that movie. I don't like Batman v Superman, though. I think Batman v Superman's bad, so I'm very much in favor of erasing everything from Batman v Superman. It's also obviously very important to build Clark Kent out as a character, because that's something that we got some of in Man of Steel. We got a little bit of that, seeing who Clark is and what he likes to do, but I'd like to expand upon that, because with Batman v Superman, we didn't really get any of that at all. It was mainly the Batman show, and then Superman would occasionally show up to be an idiot, and that was kind of it. Clark had hardly any lines in the movie that had his own name in the title, so I'd very much like to see Clark Kent built out more, Superman and Clark Kent built out more, and have him talk more. I'd very much appreciate that. I think it's very important to get people to like the character of Superman, have him be charming. We need that. We need to see why you should really care about Superman in this movie, and having him interact with the Daily Planet is a big part of that. Also, what's important is building out his rogues gallery, because again, it's been like a decade since Man of Steel, so we have missed a lot. Because in Man of Steel, we had Zod, that's one Superman villain, and then Batman v Superman, we had Zod again, except this time he turns into Doomsday. So they haven't really built out Superman's rogues gallery very much. If you count Bloodsport and the Suicide Squad, then technically that's another Superman villain, but he's completely changed from the comics, so he's not really a Superman villain. So something I think would be cool here is to have a bunch of smaller villains, well, not a bunch, but a few smaller villains show up and commit crimes, and Superman stops them. I think if you have some smaller villains like Toyman or Puzzler, Silver Banshee, just show up like doing whatever, robbing banks, causing mayhem, trying to do whatever it is they're trying to do, and Superman takes like 5-10 minutes out of the movie to stop them, I think that'd be cool. I like that because it would also add to Metropolis and feel like, oh yeah, this is like a city where things happen. It's not just, oh yeah, every once in a while there's one huge villain that takes an entire movie for Superman to stop. No, there is that overarching villain that he needs to stop for the movie that's important for the plot, but also there's these other villains causing mayhem that Superman also has to stop. I think that would be cool, and I would very much like to see that. Now, as far as the overall plot for the movie and what comic I would borrow from and what villains to use for the big villains, I would use Lex Luthor in the background. Lex Luthor is my favorite comic book villain, but I don't think he needs to be in like front and center in another Superman movie yet, because he's been in so many Superman movies. It's like, man, Superman has a great rogues gallery, but all you ever see is like Lex and Zod. So for this, I would stay away from Lex Luthor as front and center. I'd have him behind the scenes. I think that could be good. But as far as the villains, I would choose more like, human villains. I wouldn't choose like these big intergalactic villains, because a lot of people have been saying Brainiac. I love Brainiac. I think he'd be great, but I don't think you need him for the second Superman movie, because I don't think every Superman villain needs to be a guy that is trying to take over or destroy the world. I don't think we need another one of those. I think we need someone that's a bit more smaller in scope. And to me, what I would do is, if I were in charge, I would use Secret Origin. And now I'm not saying the whole of Secret Origin, Jeff Johns and Gary Frank's Secret Origin. I'm saying just the Parasite Metallo stuff, because that whole comic is amazing. But the Parasite Metallo stuff would fit really well here, because you don't need to retell Superman's origin. We got it in Man of Steel. We don't need that again. But the Parasite Metallo stuff could be really cool, seeing how Lex Luthor has turned these people into these monsters, even though, in this, John Corbin was already not such a good guy, but with Parasite we see that's not the case, and I think that could be really interesting. And again, these are villains that are not trying to take over the world or destroy the world. They're just guys doing things in Metropolis. And I think those could be some interesting fights, because you have Superman having to deal with a dude with a kryptonite heart. You have Superman having to deal with a guy that can sap his powers from him. I think that's really interesting. I think those are great villains. And the way Secret Origin handles it is great, and I'd love to see those two as like the main villains. And then in the end, you could have like in the comic where Superman finds out that Lex was behind it. But yeah, I think that would be great. Also, something I'd love to see from the comic is there's a point in there where Superman sort of gives a speech to the people of Metropolis, because in the book, Lex is like giving all these things away to the people of Metropolis. He's like running sort of a sweepstakes that like every week or whatever, people show up to this one part and he chooses someone and he helps them, and one of those people is Parasite. But yeah, he helps them and everyone's like, oh man, this is gonna, this is my ticket to, to not being poor, not having a horrible life. And then Superman shows up and stops Lex Luthor and all the crimes he's doing, and people are like, oh wow, Superman, you're the next guy, you're the one we look forward to, you're the one that can help fix our lives. And Superman gives a speech where he's like, no, I want you guys to stop looking up for a savior in the sky and realize you can improve your own lives. Like, you need to stop this. This is not healthy. And I really like that, especially in contrast to Batman v Superman, where Superman just, like, kind of sits there when everyone's worshiping him as a god, and he just, like, sits there and is like, yeah, whatever. Like, I would like to have this where Superman's like, no, you guys can do things yourself. You realize that. You don't have to be looking up for Superman to fix all of your problems. So I'd like to see that part from Secret Origin there, especially. I think that'd be cool. And yeah, I just think it's a great comic that they could definitely borrow from. They already borrowed from Secret Origin a little bit in Man of Steel. So, borrowing from the rest of it, I think would be a good idea. And this is something on a smaller scale, because I like Man of Steel, but Man of Steel is so, like, and Batman v Superman are both, like, huge scale, because you have Doomsday of Batman v Superman coming in and killing Superman in his second movie. And Man of Steel is, again, I really like it, but you have Zod coming in being like this huge force trying to destroy the world, which is great for that movie, but we don't need to see it again in the sequel. Give us something smaller scale with Metallo and Parasite. But yeah, that's pretty much my ideas for Man of Steel 2, because again, also with the smaller villains I was talking about committing other crimes that Superman can stop in this movie, you build out his rogues gallery, so that way you can use them later. And something that I like that the DCU has been doing with its other movies, like with Black Adam, with the JSA, with the Suicide Squad, is they just acted like these characters have existed the whole time. I like that. We don't need an origin for every single character that shows up. We don't need a whole movie explaining this is why this character is here and how they got here. It's just like, oh yeah, that character exists in the DC universe. We're just seeing them now. I like that. Keep doing that. And that's what I would do with these other villains that show up, like I was talking earlier with like Silver Banshee and stuff. You don't need to explain everything about her. Just be like, yeah, she's a villain that causes problems. Superman stops her. That's all you need. But yeah, you could give the origin of Parasite and Metallo, the bigger villains in the movie. And I think you could do some really cool things here, and I hope they get a great director and writer for this. I'm really excited, and I think Henry Cavill's a perfect Superman. I really hope things go well for this movie. It's not like Man of Steel 2 fails, and then we just don't see Henry Cavill again, and the resurgence effort was a complete failure. So, yeah, but I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. What would you do for Man of Steel 2 for a sequel? If you had creative control, what would be your ideas? What comics would you borrow from? Because there's so many other comics I would love to do, but I'm like, man, we're not there yet. You can't, like, do Superman ending battle yet. You gotta get there, you know? There are things that you have to build to first and to expand the Superman world before you can get to these other great stories. Like Camelot Falls would be so cool to do, but we're not there yet. You know, we gotta do some things first. And that's what I think this movie could be, is sort of laying more of the groundwork for future Superman movies, as well as this would also be amazing, obviously. Well, in my opinion. But yeah, I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. What would you do for a Man of Steel sequel? If you had creative control, what would you be your ideas? I want to hear from you guys in the comments below, so I hope to hear from you guys there. Also, recently I did a video on the death of Superman to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the death of Superman. I'll have that linked in the outro if you want to check that out. I thought it turned out really well. I'm really happy with that video, and I had a lot of fun making it, so please check that out, and I will see you guys later.
Hey, skinny boy, saucy boy, I be running to the bank. Yeah, you know I hit the gas in the whip full tank. Riding past the ocean while I'm listening to Frank.